For this podcast, we're going to be looking at the notable Democratic nominees so far in the presidential hopefuls for 2020. It's going to be one of three at least podcasts for the day. First, we need to talk about the idea of kind of eliminating the idea of the people who have actually really done nothing. So we're going to eliminate the idea of the larger names of the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, who has announced. I don't think he's really going to be much of a thing because we don't want people who are going to be pretty much no names in this. And we're also going to eliminate the idea of John Delaney, because if we look at his actual ideas on what he actually produced as legislation, it was pretty much nothing, and it was pretty much led to a nothing that would actually show what his actual policies were. And he claims he's an actual progressive in his policy, yet some people claim he's a moderate, and it really doesn't show much in either direction because we don't really have enough information on him, because he really doesn't have much of an actual look from what he actually did in office. He really didn't do much in actual office, and I think we can pretty much declare him as being an early dropout, especially because he filed back in 2017 at being one of these early anti-Trumpers, most likely. That brings us back to the list. We'll start with Cory Booker. Now, most people think Cory Booker is going to be one of these big people on the campus, but when things are going to be coming out about him is that if you look at him, most of his donations throughout his senatorial career have actually come from big pharmacy. And when it comes down to actually both parties, being attached to big pharmacy is not exactly a good thing when people are looking for cheaper medical care. That's not exactly a way to do it, because when it comes down to cost, people want this cheaper cost. And being connected to them, to basically having a person in office to basically keeping the cost as high as possible by giving donations. Anytime these donations come in, all it's going to do is raise cost. So having a person that's getting donations from them is only going to be an advocate to being there to support higher costs and be against the idea of right to try laws, as we saw with his opposition, as well as many other Democrats' opposition to right to try. And this is where we see him with it. So when that comes out on the mainstream, we're going to see that he's going to be very, very disliked by a lot of Democrats. He may try to come up with this Spartacus type of routine, like how he was trying to oppose any type of Trump nominee, and trying to come up on this moral agenda. But when it comes down to it, he doesn't have that moral agenda, and especially when it comes down to the sexual assault allegations, which we don't know if they're true or not, but there's that. There's also the fact of him being linked to big pharmacy, which we know is true because we have a paper trail, and we can link that directly to him through actual donations and through his legislation, which actually has blocked the ability for these drugs to actually be as a right to try, and actually getting rid of such things as the FDA, which if you get rid of the FDA and go toward an independent rating service, this would actually cause a serious reduction in price and allow a lot of other drugs to compete in the same lines. Now, he has not come anywhere close to supporting anything like this, which makes him very, very suspect to being independent in this region. He's also has been a big advocate for taking people's land when it's been beneficial to the area. And you're going to see that this is a big problem with it when it comes to eminent domain. And he's a big proponent for eminent domain. Now, if we don't, because of the pharmaceutical, we have Pfizer in New Jersey, so this is also going to be a major problem. And this goes back to the big pharmaceuticals. So when we look at that, that's going to be a big problem there. Now, if we go down to the next one, we see Julian Castro. Now, Julian Castro is going to try to basically say that he helped people as HUD. Well, if we look at actually his record as HUD, he's one of many people that had a very, very horrible record as housing and urban development. It was just another basically garbage in, garbage out. There was actually nothing that actually helped people. It actually made people in a worse situation, and there were more applications coming in during his time, and it basically made people in a worse situation. He was also he was also the San Antonio mayor, which is another problem because San Antonio during his time in office was actually in shambles. And do you really want a guy that has run a city that was actually in horrible condition and on top of that was also the housing and urban development secretary when it was actually really just the same old garbage that it was before? Now, I don't think exactly that he's going to be running with much of a force because there's not going to be much behind him. He's going to be trying to play the racial card with being Hispanic, but I don't think that's going to be able to pull him past enough. Next, we're going to go with Kirsten Gillibrand. Now, her problem exists that she's trying to pull the little switch from being more of a conservative Democrat to trying to switch that out to being a progressive. Essentially, she is Hillary Clinton 2.0. She's basically trying to pull this little switch off, and I doubt that people are going to fall for this because people are not exactly going to be very keen on what she has to offer. When she was for a lot of the things, such as when she was for gun rights before, when it was in her area with it, now she says she's against it. And she says she was wrong before. Well, what about back then? Was it wrong back then? She also supported the Clintons and all of these other people. They were basically guilty of sexual assault. Well, was it right back then? Well, this is the whole point that she doesn't discuss. She just says it was a different time. Well, when it comes to morals, there was no different time. Either sexual assault is wrong or it's not wrong. You can't stand in the middle. And this is something that she's going to have to explain. And that's where I think she is not exactly going to fare very well. Now, Kamala Harris is our next one. This is going to be a little bit of an interesting one because people tend not to understand really much of her. They think that she is this big rising star and this progressive darling. The truth about her is she is probably one of the biggest drug warriors along the lines of Jeff Sessions. She probably could even put Jeff Sessions to shame. She actually filed for most of the people to have most of the criminals in her state to actually have the longest possible sentences. Even in cases where there was misconduct, she would actually fight to basically have these cases thrown out, even if there was misconduct in her office. And when it came down to when people filed for new cases, when there were clear signs that these people were innocent, she would fight for these cases to be thrown out. Now, this shows that she is not for criminal reform. She is not for getting rid of the actual war on drugs. It shows that she's only for it because it's politically popular right now. This is basically, she is essentially copying the whole model of Hillary Clinton. When it's popular, she does what's popular. And you're going to find that. And if you want basically the black version of Hillary Clinton, vote for Kamala Harris. She's copying exactly what Hillary Clinton does. She may speak better than Hillary does in a public setting, but she does the same thing of basically doing what is politically popular. She's only pandering to these people, and she's only looking for just the next level of power. That's why she's only in her first term as senator, yet she's looking to be president, just like Hillary Clinton was after being first lady. Now we have next is Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, her problem is her bio is very, very sketchy. She tried to proclaim that she is Native American and even used it to get a job at Harvard. When we look at it, and there's very, very skeptical things in her actual DNA when she had the DNA. It proved that basically that she has half the DNA of the average United States citizen of being Native American. Even on top of this, when we actually do an actual history of her family, we find that family members within her family were actually guilty of slaughtering Indians. Now, this is not exactly of what we should think of as a Native American. And in fact, when we see what she's done with it, anytime where there's actually an issue that comes up that she should be standing strong, she becomes very, very weak and backs off. When it comes to any type of issue, she will always get weak and back off. This is not exactly something we call a leader of any type. And if we look at her, she's very, very robotic in the way she does her podcasts, and she's not exactly explaining anything. And if you look at the way she does everything, it's very, very scripted, and it's not showing what exactly she is as an actual person. It's not natural. So we know that there's something that she's hiding on these things. And when it comes down to her, you want an actual leader for the actual party, if you're speaking from a democratic aspect. Now, I am a libertarian conservative, so I tend to think of who's the best for liberty. But even if you're talking from an aspect of a Democrat, you're going to want to have someone who's an actual leader. You don't want to have someone who's completely spineless. And that's exactly what you're going to get with Elizabeth Warren. And if you want to basically be killed by Donald Trump, you're going to basically not want Elizabeth Warren, who's basically who pretty much gets triggered anytime he makes a statement, which means she can't handle any type of commentary from him, and that she can't even stand up on her own morals herself. She doesn't even stand up on anything. Whenever she gets up on any of these important issues, she tends to back up and she tends to concede on every one of them. Now let's look at an interesting one, which is Tulsi Gabbard. Now Tulsi Gabbard would be considered pretty progressive on most of her ideas. When it comes down to war, she is actually pretty unique, because what she does is she actually was one to actually question the narrative of her own party on what was happening in Syria. In fact, she actually went out to Syria to meet with President Assad to actually discuss things and actually find out what was really going out there, instead of just taking the legacy media's story. Now, this is a little bit different than what we're finding out from a lot of the other people out there that are running for president. She's not taking the actual story of what the legacy media is giving her or what she's being told by advisors. She wants to get the story herself. She's not taking the story from these white helmet people that are actually working with the terrorists. She actually wants the story herself. And this is something that's a little bit different. She's actually someone that actually is a little bit interesting, because if you're looking at someone who's basically going to stand up on legitimate issues, when they basically pretty much decided that they were going to make Hillary Clinton the nominee no matter what the outcome was, she pretty much said, I'm going to step down from my leadership role, even though that was not exactly the best for her politically. Now this shows that she's standing up on her morals, which is showing that she actually has great leadership skills. Now this would be a great person to look toward leadership for the Democratic Party. Now if you're looking for someone that actually to run, in my opinion, from an aspect, it would be her. Now the last one we're going to look at is Andrew Yang. Now his main idea is to have this allowance for every citizen of $1,000. Now other countries have actually tried this, and they've noted what happens is all it does is end up ripping up the treasury, and they end up having to cut the program. A couple of countries have already tried it, and they've already ended the program because of its destructive nature. Now if we want to look at this seriously, we need to realize that his ideas are just completely brain dead. This can't be done. This has even been thought of in the past and worked out on paper, to being shown that basically when you give out free money, it kills everybody's incentive to actually work. In essentially what you're doing is when you're giving out this money, you're basically going to create this problem unless you do things such as cut 100% of public aid. You're not going to eliminate the problems that are coming out with this. Now he has not shown any willingness to eliminate public aid. Now this is going to cause huge problems. Now if you take that $1,000, add in money for public aid like welfare, this is going to cause a huge problem. And because you're going to be adding in both those two things together, and what this is going to do is it's going to basically incentivize people not to work. Now you have an even larger group of people not working because it's actually lucrative not to work and not even to try business on their own, because they're actually getting money from productive people. That's actually being taken out from this idea of this $1,000 a month. This being added on top of what we're actually doing. Now, unless he has an idea to eliminate all public aid, which would at least reduce this amount somewhat, it's going to cause a huge problem. Even with this, he's going to have to realize that this is not a productive idea. Now, I like his want for actually wanting for change and wanting to help people, but the fact is they've tried this on the small scale for businesses. Small scale for businesses, when they've tried this, it's caused huge problems of production, and the businesses have nearly gone under when they've tried it for even short periods of time of even 3 months of giving extra money out without actually increasing production and taking it out of the actual owner's pocket. Well, what this does is it basically causes no more production, and it causes essentially the business to be wasting money. What you need to do is you need to pay for actual production. This is how capitalism works. You need to eliminate this idea of free money, because nothing is free in this society. When you eliminate all of this extra free money, so-called, you're going to actually have a lot more things going. I know that when it comes on the Republican side with the idea of Donald Trump, that there are still some issues. We need to actually look at the idea that there's still some serious problems with him, but we need to look actually at the idea that there is some serious problems that need to be solved, which means getting rid of all public aid, because this just causes problems within a capitalist society, and going away from capitalism is not the solution, because you're only going to create more issues, such as actually killing the actual incentive to work. The incentive to work is not just because you have fulfillment in your lives. It's because there's actually it starts out with the actual fulfilling of basic needs, and then it works up from there. If you look at basic psychology, you'll actually learn this. For actual psychology, for actual business. But because most people don't understand this and they learn it from elsewhere, this is why you get ideas of people thinking that it's ideas of giving out free money and free aid work, and not doing it from the actual idea of charity instead. Now, I hope you like this video, and I will see you later today. Bye.